Welcome once again, Shalom Ubracha, to Mitzvah of the Week, a division of Parasha Study Plus, and under the auspices of Tanakh Study. This week's Parasha is Parashat Tisa. Last week we also covered a mitzvah that it had its tentacles in Parashat Tetzaveh, but was actually written in Tisa about Kiddush Yadav Raglaim. Another very important mitzvah in this week's Parasha is the Netinat Mahaseet Hashekel, giving of the Mahaseet Hashekel. We already commemorated this. We'll see why, but let's get started with this extremely important mitzvat aseh. So we start off with Sefer HaChinuch that tells us what this mitzvah is all about. It's a mitzvah Kof He, which is 105. She'yiten kol echad miYisrael miben 20 shana v'mala, everyone in Israel from the age of 20 and up, ben ani ben ashir, whether they are poor or they're rich, they give mahatzit shekel, half a shekel, which we'll delve into what exactly that is, what's the denomination, etc. Sefer HaChinuch gives us a little taste of it right now, which he says, what's a shekel? Shehu mishkal asara gera kesef. It's the measurement of a weight measurement of 10 gera of silver. Bekol shana liyad kohanim, and he gives it to the kohanim. Shneimar ze yitenu kol ha'over ala pekudim. Right, everybody who passes this count is going to be somebody who shall give it, and we know the continuation of the pasuk, mahatzit shekel b'shekel hakodesh, having to give the denomination of half a shekel. What would they use? What would be the function of this mitzvah? Meaning, why all of a sudden do we need half a shekel? So we see why we need to bring the half a shekel. So Sefer HaChinuch continues and says, "V'hayu manichin hakol b'lishka achat shebamikdash." Lishka was one of the storehouses. There were many lishkaot in the temple, in the Beit HaMikdash, and they would all go into this lishka. All the coins would be there. ומשם היו מוציאים לקנות תמידין ומוספין וכל קורבן הקרב על הציבור ונזקיהם. All of the sacrifices would be purchased from that money, and not only that, but also the libations, the salt, the atzeh ma'aracha, the firewood, the lechem hapanim, the two breads, the salaries of the ones who needed to make the showbreads, the omet of the shtei halechem, which was another korban, para aduma, if it needed to be purchased, the red heifer. All of these funds belong to the Beit HaMikdash. It was in the lishka of the shekalim, the storehouse of the shekalim, and that's where all of these funds would come from. Sefer HaChinuch continues, and as is customary when he talks about a mitzvah, tells us the shoresh of the mitzvah, the roots of the mitzvah. The shoreshah mitzvah, from the roots of the command, Sheratzah HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'tovat Kol Yisrael, which we mentioned was a theme that HaKadosh Baruch Hu only has our best interest in mind. And what does this have to do with what's going to be the tovah from the Mahaseet Hashekel? Uzkotam shtiyeh yad kulam shaveh badavar hakorbanot hakeravim lefanav. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted, quote unquote, for all of us to have an equal share, an equal hand in the sacrifices. So by each and every person giving the Mahaseet Hashekel, poor or rich, giving the same denomination, then all the sacrifices of the year were, it's not only as if, in reality, we all had a hand in giving this. Kol hashana b'hatmada u'b'aniyim אלו הנזכרים שיהיו הכל, אחד עני ואחד עשיר, שווים במצווה אחת לפניו. In this one commandment, in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, everybody would be equal. So it's really a great musar point for all of us, that yes, we're all equal in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We sign off that way in the Amidah as well, in the final Elokai Netzor, which is a very powerful line in the prayer. So this mitzvah of giving the Mahaseet Hashekel, of all of us partaking equally in the mitzvah of all of the korbanot of the year and all of the holy acts in the Beit HaMikdash that had the Mahaseet Hashekel fund supporting it, we're all together and equal in it. Question is, what about nowadays? Do we have this mitzvah to give the Mahaseet Hashekel? So Sefer HaChinuch comments, V'noheget bizman habayit Shehayavim latet ota kol Israel. Only when the times of the Bet HaMikdash did we actually have a command and a mitzvah. And when the temple stood, this was ben ha'omdim ba'aretz or chutz ha'aretz. It applied to people both in Israel and outside of Israel. What about nowadays without a Bet HaMikdash? V'shelo bizman habayit, without a temple, en hayav ba adam va'afilu ha'omdim ba'aretz. Nobody is liable, is hayav for this mitzvah, since there is no Bet HaMikdash, there's no korbanot, there's no lishka, there's no connection. If it was during the times of the Bet HaMikdash and a person skirted their responsibility, the Sefer HaChinuch, he says ve'onsho gadol meod, that his punishment was pretty grave. Ve'achshav ba'avonotenu she'en lanu mikdash ve'lo shkalim nahagu is the key word. Kol Yisrael, right? The entire nation of Israel is kol hadavar likrot bebet haKnesset kol shana v'shana parasha zo shel ki Tisa ad velakachta et kesef haKippurim v'Shabbat shu lifnei Rosh Chodesh Adar le'olam. The Shabbat that's before Rosh Chodesh Adar, which passed already, since we don't have the Bet HaMikdash, still our custom was to we read this excerpt, the beginning of Parashat Tisa, to remind us about this mitzvah, so that when Bet HaMikdash comes, it'll show that we're ready to act on this and understand our first order of business is going to be able to get the funding for the Bet HaMikdash to be able to operate with all of these korbanot. So again, this is just another beautiful musar point in the mitzvah. Practically speaking, Sefer HaChinuch says, look, the mitzvah doesn't apply today. We do have a custom, though, to read it. This is called Parashat Shekalim. And what we should have in mind is that it's a great custom to keep us in mind that the Geulah is coming, and we have to be ready. We always have to be psyching ourselves up to be able to getting as close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu as possible and ready for the Biat HaMashiach and the pending Geulah. Sefer HaChinuch continues that last slide in English, and he was quoting the Mishnah in Masechet Megillah. So I brought here the Mishnah in Masechet Megillah, and there's an important shakla v'tarya, give and take in the Gemara, that I think is important, that starts with the Mishnah. And again, this actually happened this year. This Mishnah on Daf Kaftet Amud Aleph, it's all the way at the bottom of the page. You'll see that this actually happened to us this year. Rosh Chodesh Adar Shehaliyot b'Shabbat. What happens if Rosh Chodesh Adar falls out on Shabbat, which happened this year? Tafshin Pe Aleph 5781. Korim beParashat Shekalim. It actually is Shabbat, one sefer for Shabbat, a second sefer for Rosh Chodesh, and a third sefer for Shekalim. Haliyot betoch Shabbat. Let's say it happens on a weekday, Rosh Chodesh. Makdimin l'she'avar, mafsikin l'Shabbat acheret. Makdimin means you'll read Shekalim on the Shabbat before Rosh Chodesh Adar, and mafsikin l'Shabbat acheret, and that means the next week will be a break from the special parashiot, meaning it won't be Zachor and it won't be Para, etc. Obviously, so there'll be a little bit of a break. So you would just see, even from the times of the Mishnah, once Rosh Chodesh Adar fell, the Mishnah was already dealing with when should we read Shekalim, when should we announce about this very important mitzvah of giving Mahaseet Hashekel. Now this Gemara is the continuation, Megillah Daf Kaftet. It's on the bottom of Amud Aleph, top of Amud Bet. That gives us a couple of insights into some reasoning, not only behind the Mahaseet HaShekel, but also why is it situated specifically in connection with Adar. So Tanan Hatam, the Mishnah was taught there. Be'ehad ba'adar mashmi'in al shkalim. Right, and now in the Mishnah it says, in Rosh Chodesh Adar mashmi'in, we inform the people al hashekalim, to give Mahaseet HaShekel. It also, in the the continuation is, and also the kilayim. Bishlama, the Gemara says, it makes sense al hakilayim, that to mention about kilayim, right? Kilayim is a forbidden mixture, and that the time of the crops being able to be to come into fruition, that was the time of the planting. So it says bishlama al kilayim, that's the time to announce, because dizman zeriahi, it's the time of the planting. Ela al hashekalim, but what's the connection between Adar and Shekalim? We don't have, the Shekalim are not coming for a long time, or we don't, or maybe there's no month. Well, what's the connection? What is the Gemara? I say men alan. From where do we know? Amar Rabbi Tavi, Amar Rabbi Yoshia. Rabbi Tavi said, in the name of Rabbi Yoshia, the Amar Kera, because the pasuk says, Zot olat chodesh bechodsho. This is the olah, the sacrifice that's getting brought chodesh bechodsho, in its time, in its chodesh. So what does that mean? Amra Torah hadesh vehave korban metiruma hadasha. So it says that this is talking about what is Zot Olat Chodesh Bechodsho. This korban was talking about it's in the month of Nisan, and since we're starting it from Nisan, that those offerings need to be done from a new collection, Metiruma Hadasha. וכן מניסן באי הקרובה מתרומה חדשה, קדמינן וקרינן באחד באדר, כי אחד דלייתו שקדים למקדש. So since all of the korbanot need to come from new money, Zot Olat Chodesh Bechodsho, when it becomes renewed, so therefore we need to understand that all of the korbanot that come in Nisan, and this korban and the teruma that's brought out have to be from a teruma hadasha. What does that mean? That means a new donation. So each year it has to, that you're bringing it in 5781, it has to come from 5781 money. So everyone has to bring their Mahaseet Hashekel in the month of Nisan. So the Torah, the rabbis wanted to give, in order to fulfill this mitzvah from the Torah, the rabbis wanted to give the people at least a month to be able to gather the funds to make sure that they had the Mahaseet Hashekel. So therefore, that's what Adar. Let's summarize the Gemara. The Gemara just wanted to know. So why are we announcing about this before Rosh Chodesh Adar if you don't have to bring it till Nisan? Because that's a chidush in and of itself. You have to, Nisan and on is where you have to bring all the korbanot from the new money, and then once we bring it from the new money, we're able to pay for all of the new korbanot. So we have to give everybody a month to get their monies in order to make sure that we can pay for all of the korbanot of the year, starting on that day in Nisan. So the Rambam is very interesting on Shekalim. This is in Mishnah Torah, Shekalim Aleph Bet. The Rambam wants to just state that any time the Torah spoke about having to, let's say, pay any denomination of silver, which is use the word kesef, they're talking about the shekel. So he says, Minyan kesef amud ba'Torah, with all of these topics, you can read them here in English, is hu kesef hu shekel, hane'emar b'chol makom ba'Torah. It's the silver denomination of a shekel that's spoken everywhere. Umishkalo, what's the weight? 320 se'ora, 320 barley seeds. We'll get into what that means. But it's 320 barley seeds. Ukvar hosifu hachamim alav, ve'asu mishkalo k'mishkal hamatbeya, hanikra sela bizman bayit sheni. In the times of bayit sheni, the rabbis added a little bit of a heavier weight to it that was called a sela. And we're going to see the mishkal, and he says, "V'kamahu mishkal hasela 384 seora benonit." There were 384 medium barley grains. So we're going to see the difference between the original stipulation that it was 320 barleys versus 384. The Rambam says that Mahaseet Hashekel, it's mitzvata she'iten Mahaseet matbeya shel oto zman, afilo haya oto matbeya gadol mishekel hakodesh. So we want to make sure, even if the matbeya was greater than the actual shekel hakodesh that Moshe Rabbeinu had spoken about, we have to make sure that we never go lower than the matbeya of Moshe Rabbeinu. So he says, the Rambam highlights this, Ule'olam eno shokel pachot michatzi hashekel sheyah bimei Moshe Rabbeinu. Do not go lower than the chatzi shekel in the times of Moshe Rabbeinu. Shehu mishkalo 160 se'ora. So if you didn't read that previous piece that we brought from the Rambam, then you'd be confused when you read on. If you just jump into this halacha, you could say, of the Rambam, and you didn't start from 3 halachot before, you say, what does that mean, 320? Not so clear. So again, that the shekel measurement was 320 barleys originally, and then it jumped by the Chachamim to 384. Now, always keep in mind, we're giving half of that, half of a shekel. So now if you pay attention to the slide, which is the most important thing here for us, because practically with this mitzvah is, we've established that there's no official mitzvah nowadays because we don't have a temple. but we do have a commemorative act of we still give Mahaseet Hashekel to our shuls, and we do it so that we know that the Geulah is coming, and when the Geulah comes, we'll all be prepared. So how much is it? Right now, basically, Rabbi, thanks. You told me 320 little barleys or 384. So let's use the greater measurement of 384. So I broke it down for you here on this chart, and I'll speak out the chart for those of you who are just listening. One barley is a 20th of a gram, 0.05 grams. So if you multiply 384 of those barleys times 0.05 grams, you get 19.2 grams of silver. So 19.2 grams of silver, that's what the shekel would weigh. Now, how do I find out what that value is? So if you look up, we can look it up in ounces. So 1 entire ounce of silver, which is about a third more than 19.2 grams, equals 28.35 grams. So there's about a third discrepancy. So Mahaseet Hashekel is just over 2/3 of an ounce of silver. Right, an ounce of silver, 28.35 grams, but the 384 barleys come out to 19.2. So 19 against 28 is about 2/3. So an example for 2021, as we looked it up here now in early March, a full ounce of silver is $25.55. So 2/3 of that to get to the full shekel is about $16.83. If you half that, because we're giving a half a shekel, Mahaseet Hashekel, it's $8.42 a person. So it's a little bit weird to just put, okay, I need $8.42 from a person. We usually round up to the nearest 10, not if it's $6. We'll usually just say $6 or $9. But I know what I did this year, as I said, it was each Mahaseet Hashekel was $10 a person. You account for some fluctuation, the heavier barley that we said. But anyway, that's where around that. This is the calculation. Always remember that it's about 19 grams of silver is the full shekel. You're going to half that in order to get to the Mahaseet Hashekel. And again, as it stands now in about 2021, it's $8 a person. It's a very important mitzvah to always give the Mahaseet Hashekel, especially when the Beit HaMikdash is built. Now it's not an official mitzvah, it's just a custom, but we still read from Tisa in Parashat Shekalim, which we've done already this year, and we always have it in mind to always make sure that we remember we're ready for the Geulah Shalema, Mizat Hashem, that will come soon. That's all for this week, and Shabbat Shalom.